every time I chose to be obedient, even in despite of fear, because I was also afraid when I would make those decisions, I would just say, okay, God, I need your faith. Like, clearly, you know something I don't know, but I'm also really excited to find out what you know about me. I had to develop a relationship with God that said, I trust you, that you're making the decisions. I'm not. And so that cleared all the fatigue I was dealing with. All of the open tabs in my mind began to close. I began to be able to flow freely into everything God was. I might not know who I am, but I know who God is. And I know that God is faithful. I know that God is going to see me on the other side. I know that God is going to work this out. I know that God is going to use everything that I've experienced to not just bless me, but to bless others.
Hi, and welcome to another episode and another season of the Woman Witness podcast on the Woman Witness TV network. As you know, we bring to you voices of women that are out there making a positive impact in their lives, in their families, and in the community around them. Women of resilience, women of faith, women who have battled through something and they're strong enough and bold enough to come back and grab the hand of another sister and pull them through. Today, I have a very special topic and a very special guest today. Today, I'm bringing to you Miss DAE Hayes. Miss DAE Hayes is the host of Mind Your Own Motherhood podcast. Man, I love it. This is a space where faith meets maternal and mental health, and where they navigate a beautiful, messy, and uncertain situation and transition it into your everyday life. Miss DAE Hayes is a former educator and a former nonprofit manager whose most important job and title nowadays is mom. She has been given the capacity to withhold motherhood and balance, turning around and pulling another sister through in her time. So today I want to talk to you about crossroads. We often find ourselves wondering what the next step is when God is calling us to a different level. And right now, as we all know, times are uncertain. Today I brought you a special guest, Ms. DAE Hayes, who's going to pull us through and remind us of where to look to and where to lean on in these uncertain times, and how to have faith to continue to pull through. And hopefully she'll give us some fun tips on how to mind our own motherhood. So without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce my guest today, Ms. DAE Hayes. Hey, Ms. DAE, welcome to the Well. How are you?
Hi, I am so excited to be here and just share some of the things that I've learned on this journey called life. Nobody has it figured out, but I figured we can all come together and learn a couple things and help each other out on our day-to-day transition.
Absolutely. You know, you and I were just talking briefly before we press record, and I was just, in awe and amazed at everything that you are doing right now, from, balancing, running a podcast, balancing motherhood, balancing being a wife. And I'm just, my hat goes off to you. And I told you right before we press record that, man, I wish I had the capacity to do it back then. But I'm so just in awe of you that you are bold enough to turn around and give back and pull another sister through. So hats off to you. Okay, so let me start by asking you to share a little bit of your story. You talk about how you were an educator, that you went from being an educator to managing a nonprofit to now turning around and making your number one duty in your call as mom and motherhood and being a wife. So tell us about how navigating this significant life transition, and how did you find faith and motherhood and play the role of both during this time?
Ironically, all of this happened well before I became a mother. Like when I really have the hindsight that I have now, God has always gifted me the gift of pivoting. And wherever He has told me to go, I've been like, okay, all right, let's do it. Let's make the shift. The most notable shift that I can recall where I recognize that I was really good at pivoting and moving where God called me to be was when I uprooted myself from being an educator in Houston, Texas. And I just left everything and went to New York to start graduate school. I'd never been to New York. I didn't know anyone in New York, but I was like, I'm going. And I never forget God said to me in that moment, and I've always held on to this, is where I lead you and guide you, I will provide for you. I moved into my first New York apartment fully furnished with a capped rent, with a
Mm.
scholarship before I even got there. Everything that I needed. And I actually packed up my entire closet. I remember I had a huge suitcase. I was bringing all of these clothes. I'd never even seen the apartment, sight unseen.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so I didn't know that there were small closets in New York because I hadn't been there. And my luggage
Mm.
had actually burst at the airport when I got to New York. And God said, leave it. I said, Lord, what you
Oh,
talking about? I'm
oh,
fashion girly. I really liked dressing up. I dressed up to show my personality. But God, I'm going to provide. And that time in New York, I will two things. He provided not just a place for me to stay and to root myself, but I had more fashion sense than I'd ever had.
oh, you in New York, honey.
So he had that desire in mind, but he just
Mhm.
continuously proved himself faithful to me. And I just remember that being the skills and lessons from that of like just pivot. If he says move, he knows best and he's going to provide. I don't need to worry about the rest of it.
Now, where does this come from, Day? Like, does this come from like your childhood, your upbringing? Have you seen it growing up? Like, where does this like faith come from? Because this is
To
a lot
be
of faith.
honest with you, growing up, it's not that my parents didn't have the faith to move. They just had enough faith based on the faith that they had seen growing up. Um, so just as I continue to go through my life, I just began to recognize the type of favor that was on me at every point in turn in my life, where I realized like, wow, God, you not that you don't care about others, but you are showing me that you have something for me. And every time that I may have made a mistake, he still was there to embrace me. Every time that I sat down to write something or to accomplish something, I accomplished every goal that I wanted to accomplish for myself career wise by 29. By 29, I was literally managing a Southeast educational partnership for the states in the Southeast of America for T-Mobile, for an education nonprofit. That was a goal that I set out in when I was 21 in college. I thought that it would take me that would be the career I would retire in.
Mm.
But every time I chose to be obedient, even in despite of fear, because I was also afraid when I would make those decisions, I would just say, okay, God, I need your faith. Like clearly you know something I don't know, but I'm also really excited to find out what you know about me.
You know, Jesus said, like in the Bible, he was so amazed by the faith of the people. That is the one thing I believe that moves God, moves Jesus, moves the Holy Spirit, is your faith. And you know, the fact that you said something to me that just kind of like sent chills up my spine. You said that you're just excited to find out. I think that is such a huge factor that we need moving forward, especially if we're moving into a different transition that God is leading us down, right? I mean, I feel like every time we turn the corner, it's something new.
Yeah.
But I love your excitement about it. How about getting excited about it? You
Yes.
know, God, what you got for me next? You haven't failed me yet. Okay, so how did your experiences as an educator and nonprofit manager prepare you for the emotional, logistical challenges of major life decisions and life changes?
So being an educator, it has always been about planning, 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 and beginning with the end in mind was like a major skill set that I continue to draw on in motherhood. And so I'm always asking myself like, does this decision align with the end goal that God has shared with me or the end goal that I've said, God, you've placed this desire in my heart? And so, but the biggest thing that we have to do when we begin with the end in mind and when we're doing that planning is we have to be more intentional about inviting God into that process. So the difference between my aspirational accomplishments in my career prior to motherhood was actually a lot of that planning. God was so gracious to me, because a lot of that planning I didn't include him in, but he still gave me enough grace to accomplish all the things that I desired. Then when I got married and I realized, okay, two becomes one, and then we also need to invite God into this. And what does this look like? And I realized, like, oh God, I don't know anything about being a wife. I don't know what a goal is associated with that. God, I don't know anything about being a mother. Like, what do I do? And so I just realized, like, yes, I can begin with the end in mind, in that God, you show me what the end in mind is for who you want me to be. And when you show me who you want me to be, then you're going to start giving me what I need to grow into being that woman, not just that wife, not just that mom, but being that woman that can step into and pivot into anything. So just really grounding myself into the vision that God has for me has been extremely helpful in pivoting in transitions.
I love that so much. And I love the way you put that too, Dave, because I do feel that when we move into that new position, right? Okay, I'm going off track a little bit, but when God gives you that vision, right? And you see it and it's so clear, you're so excited about it, but then and maybe it's the enemy, maybe it's your mind playing tricks on you, right? You're like, but I know my ways are your ways, and I don't understand how this I understand how doing this or going back or making this step is going to be beneficial into getting me to where you want me to be. Dave, give me a little bit more, because I know we were just talking about like when facing a new calling from God, and how do we discern between like the divine direction and our personal doubt, right? The enemy loves to like push us into this little hole. I want to talk to you about when we're managing times of uncertainty, like during the transitional periods, right? Especially as a mom who may already feel overwhelmed or feel like we're being pulled in so many different directions, and making so many like important choices,
Yes.
right? And this, and we are, a lot of us are mothers who are listening right now. Of course, when God is calling us to, make this move, or stay here, or do this or do that, it's geared around our children, right? So I want you to talk to me about some of the practical ways in that we can remain grounded in faith to make sure that we're hearing the word of God and not just our own doubts or fears or our ambitions.
Leah, that is such a really, really, really good question. And like the reason why I even started doing a podcast is because I was dealing with what a lot of people term decision fatigue. Just kind of being the oldest, making decisions over time for just different things in life.
Mm,
And I really got to a place, God, where I was like, God, I don't want to have to decide. And I remember my prayer about a husband. I was like, I want a husband that's gonna tell me what's gonna happen. And I know some
li-
people stay against that. Like,
listen,
tell me what you want.
help me.
100% But as I
Mm,
grew in my relationship with Christ, opening the word and really kind of learning about the character of God, I also learned about the character of the enemy as well, which is important. I think a lot of times as believers, we try to say, oh, the enemy, he does this. But if you can study the enemy, he has three tools he uses: doubt, he tries to show you deficit mindset, and distraction. And there are also three
mm,
tools from God that you can use to also address those. And so when it comes to doubt, knowing who God is and knowing who God has called you to be.
mm,
Deficit, knowing that God is absolutely all you need him to be.
mm,
Period. And then in terms of doubt, deficit, and what's the last one I just said? Doubt, deficit, and distractions. Just even distractions is keeping your eyes on God. And truly for me, it was about me opening
mm,
up the word, me developing that personal relationship with God,
Mm.
And then me saying, because decision fatigue is truly rooted in you not trusting that God is in control of everything and that God has a good plan for you. So that meant I had to develop a relationship with God that said, I trust you that you're making the decisions. I'm not. And so that cleared all the fatigue I was dealing with. All of the open tabs in my mind began to close. I began to be able to flow freely into everything God was calling me to do because
Mm.
He, as I trusted Him, He said, do this, make this decision.
Come
And
on.
because I trust Him, I made the decision. When He first told me to leave that dream job that I achieved by 29, I was like, all right, God, this what really what we're doing. Because to be honest with you, I didn't know what else I was gonna do. I was like, I just at this company, and so I'm 60 plus years old, and you know, have a nice
Right.
little income, a 401k,
Yeah.
and then I became a mom that same year, and God was like, leave, and I was like, God, we just had a child. He said, leave, and so I left. And I'm not
Mm.
here to say that the me being obedient immediately yielded a reward because he then called me to leave other things. He called me to leave social media for 3 years straight. And at that time, my side businesses, I was making money off of social media. But in those 3 years, God just grew this relationship to where I can come to him about anything in the middle of anything, in the middle of kids screaming and hollering. I could say, God, what you want me to do? And I can hear from him and he'll tell me. But in the same breath, I can come to him and say, God, I need X, Y, and Z. And he moves speedily for me. And so it's really a lot people don't like to say this. It's really a reciprocal relationship. The more you can trust him, the more you can be obedient with him, the more he can trust you, the more he's going to answer you because your heart begins to be aligned to the desires and the directions that he had in mind.
Mm.
So I hope
Mm.
that answers the question.
Oh, that definitely answers the question. I had to write it down. You said, and hold on, let's just start from the top for those of us who are taking notes. Um, you said, what is it again?
Decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue. And my goodness, for some of those of us who have decision fatigue, because it is a lot, right? We are trying to manage a lot. We're trying to do everything within our own will. You talking to me here, right? And then when we let go, because you said the enemy's job is to create doubt. Um, what was the second word?
Now, deficit
Deficit of
and distraction.
and distractions. Doubt, deficit, and distractions. That is so true. So I can see why sometimes that y'all all know that little voice in the back of your head saying, "Get off that. Why are you there?
Exactly.
Don't click again on that." What did I tell you? You need to be focusing, or you need to be focused on our work, because you know what? I do think that those distractions, we feed ourselves those, right? The thoughts that go through our head, we're seeing on social media somewhere. Maybe it's people that we're hanging out with, which will create doubt and deficit, right? So I'm all over that. I love what you just put and how beautifully you put it, Day. You put that in a book if it's not already in there. That is so beautiful. I want to talk about identity shifts and fear. It's so as life transitions us and it brings about its own identity challenges, right? Now we're trying to figure out who we are in Christ. How do you recommend women embrace this new sense of self and holding onto their core aspects of who they are and who God called them to be?
That is something that I feel like I'm finally seeing the fruits of on the other side of it. And so in 2019, I actually got pregnant shortly after getting engaged. And unfortunately, that ended in a stillbirth at 26 weeks. And that shattered my entire like program about faith and identity and being obedient. It really shifted me from realizing that like things are not going to be XYZ or
Yeah.
ABC. Things will not be linear. But in the time that I both grieved and grew, because I think that it's a decision that you can make in grief to say, okay, I have to shift at some point and grow from this. Um, what I grew to understand about my identity and who I was called to be came from me saying, God, I'm going to give you the ashes of my actual son. I'm going to give you my son back. I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to give every desire I have or I have ever had, every accomplished I've had up to this moment, every part of my identity that I've developed and that you have so graciously allowed me to develop, take it all. I gave it to him first in anger, to be honest with you. I was like, why would you take me this far just for me to experience this? But then also I gave it to him in just complete default submission because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know who else to turn to. But in the me not knowing myself, I still knew God. And that was enough. And I say that because as we shift in our identities from being the single woman who's doing her own thing to the woman who then, gets the man of her dreams and then she has the children in her family, I think that it's natural and it's okay for us to lose our identity. And we think that the world has fallen apart because we've lost our identity and we focus too much on that instead of focusing on, I might not know who I am, but I know who God is. And I know that God is faithful. I know that God is going to see me on the other side. I know that God is going to work this out. I know that God is going to use everything that I've experienced to not just bless me, but to bless others. I know who God is. And so I look forward to the ways in which I'll fall apart in the future because I know what will happen because I know who God is.
I love that so much. And you're absolutely right on that. Yeah, I mean, I can, how can we identify ourselves or know who we are in a new situation that we've never even imagined ourselves ever being in?
But God has already
But God knew
who we are in that situation. And so it's like, I don't know nothing about tomorrow because I ain't been there.
Ain't been there. Don't know what it's going to bring.
He's been there. He knows. He knows exactly what's going to happen. So what better yet for me to focus on him and his identity and who he is and to honestly, really humble myself and say, God, you know. And so I'm gonna go with what you know and who you are.
Yeah. I just keep hearing over and over, I'm going to do a new thing, right? If God is doing a new thing, how can we how can we find ourselves? Let me ask you this question. If God is always doing a new thing, he's not a man that he should lie, right? So how do we be comfortable in that new thing, right? How do we be comfortable in that new thing? I know you just kind of explained that, but I don't want to answer it for you. So I want you to answer.
No, you're totally fine. It's a lot of submission and surrender. I think there's a huge difference between the two. And I know from experience, it's a difference between submission and surrender. Surrender comes before submission. Surrendering yourself, your thoughts, your beliefs, surrendering to the idea that he's doing a new thing, surrendering to the new thing, saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know how this is supposed to happen. I do know that this is going to work out for my good because God said it and he hasn't failed me yet. That's what I know. That's all the information I need to know. And then once you get to a place of comfortably surrendering, and I say comfortably surrendering, a lot of people say it should always feel discomforted. No, if you have developed a relationship where your goal is to please God, whatever he asks for you to surrender will be comforting to you because you trust him. And then he will ask you to get to a place of submission, a place where your heart and his heart are aligned and you can submit to his instruction and you can hear from him clearly and you can move and flow in that obedience. And submitting and having a covering is a benefit. Submission is not a bad thing. It is not an evil thing. It is not oppressive. It is nothing but the example of the love of God.
They have so many thoughts going through my head right now, but I don't want to take us completely off, but I just might. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going. Here I go. So
Well,
I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking, the Bible says somewhere, and I don't know where it's at. I'm gonna find it, okay, for everybody's references if you need to know. Or you could just Google this passage where it says that the world is eagerly waiting the revealing of God's children. Right. And so, there's something about even when I hear you talk, Day, right? And hearing God speak through you. How interesting would it be that uncomfortable thing, that next step, that thing that God is moving you towards depends on your obedience, your submission, your surrender. So God can reveal his children to the world, reveal his called chosen few. Mm. The Bible says that many are chosen, but only few are selected because we have to what? What did you just say? Surrender and submit. Surrender our will and submit to God's plan that he has for us and has for us for our lives. So I don't know why, just I'm listening to you and I'm hearing you and I'm like, man, you are speaking to me and probably a lot of you ladies who are listening right now. Those are some scary words.
yeah, they are. Because unfortunately, we have been positioned to be
Program.
the boss, make the
Right.
decisions, lead the challenge, carry the things.
Mm.
Like, I don't want to do none of that no more. And I think that I am seeing a shift of women
Mm.
who are saying, I don't want to do that. I
Yeah,
don't want to
I
be
would.
the boss. I want God to be my boss. I don't want to carry everything. I need somebody
Mm.
else to carry it. Like,
Come on.
we don't have to do that anymore. And I
It's
think
bringing us down.
there's so much freedom in that. We've been fed that there's freedom in making all the decisions and leading all the things. No, it's not.
Mm.
It's the
No.
it has worn on us, on many of us for generations. And I think that it's time for us to take back our authority in the power of surrendering and the power of submission.
That's it. So God can get the glory. I'm sorry. I do believe that. It's so God can get the glory because when we come out and when we surrender our will, when we submit to God's plan, God is going to put people around us, and it may be in form of our significant others. It may be in form of our little people, okay, that we are raising.
I have to share this
Listen.
testimony. And I love sharing this testimony, and I honestly forget about it all the time when people remind me. After that loss in 2019, my husband and I, not only did we end up having 3 kids in 3 years, which was like, again, God moving speedily, but
Mhm.
we were contacted by VH1 to have our wedding paid for and televised for a pilot TV show
Oh my
called
gosh.
Our Celebrity Dream Wedding.
Oh my gosh.
In the midst of all the grief that we were going through, we had paused our wedding because we had lost our son.
Yeah.
Someone contacted us and said, "Hey, you should audition for X, Y, and Z." And we auditioned, and our wedding was paid for. And it was literally the wedding of my dreams. And I remember God saying, continue to submit to me, continue to surrender to me, and I'm going to put you in those stages, in those places. And I remember one of the and these were like celebrity
Oh, wow.
event planners, like
Yeah.
big, to be on VH1. The whole thing, I was like, this is unreal, like this is really happening. And I remember one of the planners saying, what's you guys YouTube, are you guys like YouTube influencers? And I was like, no, I just have been blessed and called by God. God puts us on those stages.
My
That's the yielding of our obedience. He will do that. And I think that we just feel like, oh, yes, for God's glory and for your goodness. He's gonna get the glory. And then he's also gonna be like, and I know she cares about X, Y, and Z, and I want her to be showered with love, and I want to do a new thing, and I want her to
mm,
experience this new thing.
my God. Oh my goodness, what a testimony. This is the stuff that needs to be said. These are the stories that need to be heard. This is what women at the well is all about, witnessing that God's greatest
I
and God
could
is
have written
holy.
this. I couldn't have written this. Like, and don't get me wrong, like I said, I have stopped posting on that same time frame. God also said get off social media. There was nothing that I could have done to expedite the growth of influence for myself in 3 years that God was able to do from me surrendering a loss to Him. I wasn't on social media. I wasn't on Instagram.
Mm.
I wasn't on anything for anyone to find me, but an
Mm.
email found me because God said, "This is for you."
Wow. Wow. When we surrender. Okay, so hold on. If I hear you correctly, let's do a little recap. So we're talking about moving in times of uncertainty and trusting God in these transitioning times of our lives. And from what I just hear you say so much over and over again, screaming so loudly, is that we surrender our will and
So
we
sorry.
it's
The third child just woke up.
it's okay.
Oh, I need to go to Royce's room and watch Paw Patrol. I'm almost done. Okay.
Almost done. Sweet baby. Oh my gosh.
He woke up like, what's happening? Why are there lights?
And that way he seems like that's the oldest, huh?
So that's the middle child, but she's the one who.
She probably run everything. I love it. I love it. I love it. No, don't worry about it all. I know. So when we surrender and we submit, I believe that that would help our paths be ordered in the direction that God is leading us down. Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about. Mind Your Own Motherhood.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm kind of stuck on that right now because we've all been in situations where, we secretly may be comparing ourselves to this person, maybe even looking at that child and saying, how come my kid is not doing that? Talk to me about Mind Your Own Motherhood. Where did this come from? Where did you have the faith to listen to this transitioning time in your life to start it? Tell me where a little background behind it.
So funny enough, Mind Your Own Motherhood was actually first titled The Mom Bar, and that was a name from God. And I was like, God, you wouldn't name nothing the Mom Bar. What are you talking about? He later then told me that would actually be more so of a network that I would create. And so Mind Your Own Motherhood is truly rooted in saying that, like, let's go ahead and declare against the enemy that we don't have to deal with decision fatigue. We can take back our authority for the decisions of what motherhood is going to look like for us. And that we have to have the responsibility of minding our motherhood. And it's so not less about like, okay, I'm going to mind my own business and more about my motherhood is what I make it and who God says that it's supposed to be about. And it's supposed to be about me and the evolution of who I am as a woman, not just about the growth of children, but the evolution of who God has called me to be through and within motherhood. Motherhood is a benefit to us as well. And I think for so many times we say motherhood is just about the kids, it's about raising others. And it's also about you getting the chance to raise yourself. It's also about you getting to fix the little girl within yourself who may have experienced trauma or neglect or separation anxiety. And so I always try to look at my kids through both their eyes, but also what did I need at that moment when I was that age that would have benefited me?
Oh, that's good. I love that so much. Day, you are so right about that. I mean, our motherhood is not just a one-trick pony, if you will. It it is all about the woman that we are growing in, that we are even growing into and learning how to balance it all and to be that best mom or figure for our children to look up to. I love that so much. Now, I'm sorry, I will say, go ahead.
Just at this one point, and taking opportunities to celebrate that.
Yes.
Celebrate our wins enough.
No.
All the kids got down at a certain time. Celebrate that. Celebrate you. If you off your feet for a little bit, that can be a part of your celebrating you. And so I just think that is really important of like, yes, acknowledging that you're evolving, but taking practical steps to acknowledge that publicly, that this is also about you.
And there is nothing wrong with that. I love that so much. I love that you created a space too for women to come and just do just that. Okay. Okay. Looking back, is there a pivotal moment in your journey where you realized that God was guiding you towards this particular work? And if so, what did that moment teach you?
I laugh out loud about it because In that same year of 2019, God, he asked me to go leave social media. He said, focus on my email list that I developed at that time. And he told me to launch it was like a grief meditation series. It was a 3-part series, audio series. That was in 2019. Then fast forward to about 2022, Mind Your Own Motherhood was birthed. And I was like, God, I don't know anything about podcasts. He was like, yes, you do. You've done it before. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I go to log into the Spotify account and I see these 3 audios that I did in 2019 that I shared with my email list in 2019 that I had completely forgotten about. So I had already set up a podcast and didn't know that I had set up a podcast. And I was like, oh God, you're calling me to this. Fast forward to me launching the podcast and it being successful and speaking to different women. God said, now you're going to produce podcasts for others. I said, God, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about this. He said, yes, you do. My graduate degree is in instructional technology and design. And we would produce podcasts for the local schools in New York City and Columbia. I just do things and I'm not, this is why I say God wastes nothing. And so he sent me my first client and I produced their podcast. And then he started sending me more people. And I was like, and they were moms who were fearful of how do I record a podcast, but have somebody even gonna want to hear my voice if there's a child in the background. And my first episodes, my kids were there, and I would tell my audience, you're gonna hear love and correction and little feet in the back. But I've got to do what God has called me to do. And so I say that to say he has literally guided every step because this was never in my plan at all. And I would have never entered into the podcast industry had I not experienced what I experienced in 2019.
Wow. Wow. Isn't it so beautiful when you can look back and see God's hand in your life?
His
And
hand is all over my life.
gosh, that's so beautiful. I want to ask you, to those moms right now who are out there and I mean, this is a new year, new people in different seats of authority. What would you say to some of those women who may be fearful about, getting started, or, maybe I should just wait before I take this next journey? I hear God calling me to this direction, but I'm going to just wait. I'm a little bit fearful of what's to come. What would you say to them?
What I would first say to them is go read Isaiah 6 for yourself because I want you to know for yourself. I'm going to tell you, but I want you to know Isaiah 6 for yourself. If you're feeling that call, God has called you. He's ready for you to answer the call. And then he's going to give you your commission and your instructions. So if you're waiting on those instructions, he wants you to answer the call first. He can't give you instructions for something that you're not going to agree to do. He's just not going to do it. And so the beautiful thing that I love about Isaiah 6 is Isaiah first recognized, like, hey, it's a lot going on in the world. I'm around a lot of people that's doing a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing either, God. And I apologize. My bad, Lord. I didn't even realize how unworthy I am. So it's okay. You know what, Lord? It's a lot going on right now. And he knows it's a lot happening. It's a lot of uncertainty. But then after that, Isaiah said, after God said, but who shall I send? God was still like, yeah, I know you're unclean. Yeah, I know you make mistakes. But I still need to send somebody. And you're here. And Isaiah said, send me. And he sent him with instructions, not before he cleansed him. And so I say all because God is going to do the cleansing and then he's going to give you the instructions and then he's going to tell you what to say and then he's going to send you people to help you do what it is he's called you to do. You're not going to have to do it alone. I'm here saying right now, if you're a mom and you feel like you've been called to share and amplify your voice and you know that what you have to say is going to give breakthrough to other women, that I'm here to help you as a resource in whatever way you need a resource to be answered. I'm sure Leah is here to help you to be a resource, but you've got to first answer the call so that you can get the instruction.
Come on. Oh, that's deep right there. You got to answer the call. I think a lot. There's no need to sum that up. That was good. Isaiah 6. Everybody got to read that for themselves. Look, I'm about to go read it for myself again. Let me ask you, Dave, before I let you out of here, where can we find you? Where can we find your podcast? Where can we follow you? Where can we sign up? Where can we get in touch with you? We need some help on getting going.
So you can follow me. I'm now active based on the obedience of God. He let me get back on Instagram.
3-year probation's up.
Well, you can find me on Instagram at DAE _Hayes, HAYES. I also have my podcast, Mind Your Own Motherhood, which is on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon Music. I'm going to be also launching a new podcast very soon under the same podcast network. If you are wanting to launch a podcast, or if you're interested in even trying out podcasting, my newest podcast will be an anthology opportunity for moms to see if they want a podcast. You can check it out at Pod at Home Mom. And I love that title because I was like, oh, stay at home mom, Pod at Home Mom. So that's PODATHONE.com. If you go there, you'll see the opportunity to sign up and see if you want to do podcast production. And we offer full production services, everything from engineering and editing your podcast to spiritual warfare strategy over podcasting, because that is a thing. I have had clients where the enemy attacked their voice the day before recording, and I got and we praised down and we prayed and we read that word, and her came back. Because I don't play about my clients. So if you're interested in podcasting, we even offer social media services and marketing services. So if you're fearful about it and you're like, I don't even know where to start, I'm happy to be support to help you to start. And that's pod, PODATHONE, mom.com.
I love that day. And listen, she's not lying about that spiritual warfare over that podcast. Because listen, when the enemy knows that you have something to say, he will attack you in any way.
He gets very, very, very mad.
That's true. I love it, love it, love it. Look, you offer everything. Okay, where were you at when I started mine? Look, I love this so much. You guys, please take advantage of this opportunity. I will definitely leave all the info in the description below, because this is definitely a service that is needed. Right now, I believe that God is opening doors for women to speak, not just women and men, but, for the purpose of this podcast, for women to speak and for you to tell your story. And you know what? There's plenty of people that are out there to help you do it. So thank you so much, Dave, for coming and sharing that with us. And I love to give the floor back to my guests before I let them go, just so you can leave us with something to take with us throughout the week.
I just want you to remember that you have everything that God has given you to do exactly what you're called to do. There's no deficit. There's no doubts. And we're not going to allow ourselves to be distracted by it.
That is so good. That is so good. Whoo, no deficits, no doubt, and no distraction. This is what we need to move forward in these times of uncertainty. Do not get distracted. Keep going. No deficit, no doubt. I love it. Day, we got to get this in a book. Oh my God. Listen, I mean, it's true. I mean, I think that's what holds a lot of us back from a lot of things. It's just our own fears, right? Yeah. And we have to be willing to submit and to, what is the other one? Submit and surrender. My God. Okay. This is going to be I'm taking that with me throughout the rest of the week. So please, ladies, take it and do something with it. These are great words. Okay. All right. Dave, thank you so much for coming and pouring at the well. I really appreciate you. Thank you for joining us for our season 4. I cannot believe that we're in season 4. I want to thank every woman, every man out there who has been listening to us and supporting us throughout our first 3 seasons. Thank you so much. Man, thanks. Thank you, Dave, for being here. God is so good. Listen, y'all, submit and surrender. He will order your steps. And that is true. You got two living witness of people who have been through it. And we're coming back to share with you to let you know that it is possible for you as well. Okay. All right. Perhaps you were chosen for such a time as this to write, to tell your story, your truth. Until next time.